Usually the first thing we want to look at is the poem itself and who wrote it. So we have here a poem by Wilfred Owen, who was a soldier who died in battle, essentially. He was a soldier and a poet. And so that gives this poem immediate credibility because we know that the poet knows what he's talking about. We have a war poem written by a war hero. We're going to see some imagery that shows just how real the experiences within this poem are. All right, so looking at the title, we have Dulce et Decorum Est, which it's difficult to guess what this means if you don't already know, if you haven't done some research. But this is coming from Latin, which means it is sweet and fitting. So the title is saying that it is sweet and fitting. So what is sweet and fitting? We are referencing an old phrase from a much older poem, which says it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. So we're dealing with patriotism. We're dealing with an idea, an ideology that says the greatest honor, the best thing you could do with your life, particularly as a young man, is to give up your life, to go on the battlefield and to kill our enemies and even to die for the sake of our country. And that is what the title of this poem is. But as we look, even before getting between the lines, as we look at the poem, we see that the speaker is really showing a terrible imagery of what war is. And so we can say that the title is ironic because the speaker doesn't actually believe that it is in any way sweet or fitting to die for one's country. In fact, he's showing us how bitter it is, how pointless and obscene it is to die for one's country. And so the title is, in that sense, ironic. So looking at the first line, we see bent double like old beggars on the sacks. Bent double like old beggars on the sacks. So we're starting with a simile, and we can see the soldiers, they're bent over, they're crouched. We can imagine them kind of moving like some old men. They're so tired, they're so exhausted. And we see in line 2 that they are knock-kneed. We know what it means to be knock-kneed. You know, your knees are close together and perhaps your ankles are further apart. So these men don't look like big, strong, heroic soldiers. They look like they're sick, dying, deformed in some way. They're knock-kneed. As we see, they're coughing like hags. Hags are, old, miserable women. And these men cursed through the sludge of the battlefield. And what are they doing in line 3? On the haunting flares. The flares here might be the different markers, the bright lights on the battlefield. They turn their backs on the sludge, which means that they're perhaps turning away from the enemy territory and toward their distant rest. So the distant rest here, it might be, the rest they're able to get once they get back to safety. So perhaps they're on the battlefield, they're in the middle of enemy territory and they're heading back toward their distant rest and they're trudging. Of course, as we go deeper into the poem, the distant rest here might actually be a metaphor that is pointing toward their actual death, their demise that awaits as their soul is on the battlefield. That is all that is there for them, death. And these men marched asleep. They had lost their boots. They're limping, they're covered with blood. They're lame, so they're injured. Some of them might have lost legs or arms. They're blind, they can't see anything. They're drunk, not with rum, but with fatigue. I'm not sure if you've ever been so exhausted that you can't even walk a straight line. That is just how tired these men are. They're deaf, and they're deaf even to the hoots of the gas shells. So we have heavy artillery, heavy enemy fire coming down, and these soldiers are so exhausted. that they can't even hear anything. They can't see, they can't hear, they can't feel. They're in so much pain. They're just confused. And this is the image that is painted by Owen in the beginning. So in stanza 1, we're seeing this imagery of just sickness, death, fatigue, drunkenness. And it's not a picture that is inviting us into warfare. It's not something that's saying, yes, come on, join the army and you will be made into a hero. This man is showing us what it really means to be a soldier and what it really means to die for one's country, or even to fight for one's country, because in the poem the speaker is not dead. So can you imagine dying for one's country? So we're looking at the first stanza here, and I want you guys to pick out if you can find some imagery, metaphors, or similes, or anything else, any other poetic device, and then we'll briefly look at what these devices are doing in the poem. Because when we find a device, the more important thing is not just identifying the device, but understanding and even explaining why the device is there.
In line 1, you can see a simile where it says, bent double like old beggars on the sacks.
Nice. I have a simile here, which means we are comparing two things, of course, using as or like. So these men are bent double. Thank you. I think it was Gabriel for that. We see a simile here. Now, if I can put Gabriel on the spot, or maybe someone else could even jump in, why do we think these men, these soldiers, who should be, I suppose, young, strong soldiers, why are they compared to old beggars? What could be the similarity between the soldiers and old beggars?
I think that the soldiers are at war for a long time now, so this is the reason why they're exhausted and tired.
So the battle might have been dragging on for so long that in some sense, even if not literally, they would have aged while fighting. That's a very interesting point. Any other ideas as to why these men would be considered old and beggars? So we see age and we see even money, because these guys are now beggars. I see 3 hands. So I see Katie Lee.
Yes, sir, it's Kelly. They're as desperate as beggars would be.
How are they desperate, if you could explain? In what way?
And find like hope, or like just to be back how they were before the current state they're in.
All right.
I'm saying.
Yes, that's actually a very good point. So we know that beggars on the street, they're desperate for money. They need somewhere to find some shelter. They need clothes. They need food. But these soldiers aren't begging for money, right? They're desperate. But what they're desperate for is the richness of life, as it were. They're now old in the sense that they cannot enjoy life. They cannot enjoy their youth anymore. So they're basically in the condition of beggars. All right, one more person on this simile. I see Orally from 9TT.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay, back in the same sentence. To me, it seems like they're just an experience, because to me, it's like they're just fresh out of like the normal people. So now we age them much quicker than if they were used to it, or at least trained, because that kind of resources there. They just pick random persons. That's why they were bent over, because they weren't used to it.
Interesting idea there. Some of the soldiers might not even been used to this kind of experience, and even if you were well trained and well ready to fight, nothing can really prepare you to be on the battlefield and to see men dying in front of you. And so we see these men, they're in fear. They're in a despicable condition. They're like beggars, having kind of no hope. All right, let's leave the beggar line alone. What other similes do we see in this first stanza here?
Yes, sir. So another simile you can see in the first stanza is not need, coughing like hags, we curse through sludge.
Thank you. So they're like old beggars, and they're also like hags. And we can, of course, find a link between the old beggars and the hags, because hags are old, usually miserable old women. and we see them being old here. So there seems to be this emphasis on age, or apparently, aging. So they're old beyond their literal age, because as I think, as the previous student said, they're basically aging. They're being aged by war. They have lost their youths. They've lost their future, essentially. What other devices do we see? Looking from line 3 down.
In line 5, I see a metaphor which says men marched asleep.
Men marched asleep. So I'm going to put you on the spot. In what way? Because I don't think these men are literally sleeping. They couldn't be sleeping and marching. So in what sense could these men have been asleep?
The way that they're walking in a drowsy type of a way.
So it comes back to the physical tiredness. All right, that's a good idea. In what other way could these men be asleep? And as we look at sleep, let's find the connecting diction, because we know diction is the word choice in a poem. So when we see words, we look for words that might have a similar connotation, so we can find a deeper meaning. So we have asleep here. We also have rest, distant rest actually. What else do we have that connects to sleep? Softly might even refer to that lulling sleepiness. So what is all of this diction related to sleep really getting at? What is the deeper meaning? Any ideas on that?
Sir, good afternoon. My name is Ariana. To me, sir, in my understanding, I think when they say men march asleep, sir, maybe they have lost hope and thinking that they may not make it out alive, or they're just tired of, the war that they have been through.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting insight. These men are asleep, they might not make it out alive, and the sleep here could be pointing toward what? Well, what do we know to be considered asleep, especially biblically speaking? What is often considered to be a sleep or a distant rest? Anyone?
Sir, death.
Of course, I heard at least 3 students coming with death. So this whole line is painting the imagery of not just desperation, but also an inevitable death. Looking at the second stanza here, we see some action happening. So the scene is painted in stanza 1. Now we go to stanza 2 to see some action. And as we look at stanza 2, what really jumps out, at least to me, when it comes to the language, the diction, is I'm seeing a lot of ing verbs all of a sudden. And so this probably indicates that there's a lot of action happening, there's a lot of movement. And so we're moving from reflection and imagery to action. So as we look at this stanza here, we see gas, quick boys, and ecstasy of fumbling. Now let's pause at this phrase here. Ecstasy, we understand, is this idea or this feeling of overwhelming pleasure. Ecstasy is pleasure. But we know that the fumbling and the fitting the helmets, they're putting on the gas helmets because they need to survive this gas attack. How on earth could this chaos, how could this desperation be considered an ecstasy? I want someone to explain this oxymoron here, an ecstasy of fumbling.
So in this case, the ecstasy could have different meanings. Well, now it's not a feeling of happiness or excitement. It would be a feeling of needing to live and the rush of having to put on the helmet.
That's a brilliant insight right there. The rush. So when you say ecstasy, it's not just joy, it's not just pleasure, but it is adrenaline. It is that blood flow, that accelerated heart rate. And so we know that these men are panicking, they need to survive, and so what they're feeling in some sense can be considered a kind of ecstasy. Do we see any other contradictory words or ideas? We see ecstasy of fumbling, which can be considered an oxymoron. Looking even in the other stanzas or just in this stanza, do we see any other words that seem as if they're disagreeing, like they're not making sense?
In the first stanza, the last line says softly, and I don't think if gas shells are dropping, it would be softly. It would drop
Oh,
softly.
so we have gas shells. Gas shells we imagine to be loud artillery fire. So my question to you before you even unmute Katie Lee, why would the speaker say that these gas shells are dropping softly?
Sir, it could just be a euphemism, like just using soft words to picture the harshness of the situation.
Or it could be that they're not hearing properly due to the tired that they're feeling.
Hmm. Okay. Both
Sir, we,
interesting
Excuse me,
points.
sir. Excuse me,
sir, we,
sir. Could also add, not only that, but they probably be numb towards it because as before they're just trying to survive and they're on adrenaline at the time as well. So they're just numb to their surroundings and just trying to make it to the end.
and we also have to bear in mind that we are in battle and we would have had bombs dropping near you previously that would can cause the lack of hearing that we are seeing in the thing now.
All right. So all of these points are coming out just because we looked at ecstasy of fumbling. So we see that these shells that we know in a literal, in a real sense, they're very loud. But these men are deaf to these shells for a number of reasons. One, physically, they're in so much noise that it's as if, when your environment is too loud, you can't really make out any particular sound. And in another sense, we see that the senses of these soldiers have gone dull. We see drunk, we see deaf, we see blind, we see lame. It's as if they have lost all ability to see the world, to understand their environment. They're like vegetables, having no way to react to the environment. And then all of these contradictions also tie back into the whole irony or the contradiction that the poem is highlighting. When you look at this title here, Dulce et Decorum Est, it is sweet and fitting. We look at these loud sounds being considered soft. We look at the fumbling being considered to be ecstasy. It's as if, in a way, the speaker is highlighting this juxtaposition between what is expected and what is real. What people think war is like, what war is actually like. What soldiers think will happen, what actually happened. And so we see all these contradictions that are really woven into the deeper irony. Remember, the overarching irony of the poem is that people consider war to be something glorious, honorable. We have big advertisements and we recruit people into the army, fight for the motherland and whatnot. But the speaker is saying, I've done that. I have fought. I have been there. I have been in the thick of it. And let me tell you, it's not what you think it is. It is completely different. So you might think it's an ecstasy, but I'm telling you, it's nothing but fumbling and chaos. And so as we look at these contradictions, it's interesting to think about why the poet would use this kind of language that seems to be, contradicting itself or lying. All right, so let's continue with this stanza here. An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets. Now we see what we might consider personification here, because people are often considered to be clumsy. How can a helmet be clumsy? I need someone to explain how something that is not a human can be considered clumsy. Someone who is always falling and dropping things, they are clumsy people. So how are helmets clumsy?
All right, sir. So again, basically, this is just showing you the quality of the helmet because you wouldn't call a high quality thing clumsy. You would say that it's a great it's of good quality, sir. So basically, this is saying that it's a low quality helmet, and you're hurrying to fit it because you don't know if it will work already.
All right, not a bad point. I never looked at it that way. Any other reasons why the helmet could be considered clumsy?
Sir, excuse me. The helmets might be considered clumsy because it probably got damaged due to the amount of destruction that it was prone to. So the helmet might have gotten a few pieces missing, so it wouldn't fit right for the soldiers to be able to wear it to survive.
All right. So we're tying back to what was just previously said about the quality of the helmets. All right. I'm still seeing three hands. If you're
Sir?
so yes, Jolise.
Yes, sir. I think that the soldiers would probably be frustrated or like just so tired that they would just be trying to fit on the helmets. And in the face of frustration, the only thing that can be blamed would be like the helmets. They would start thinking that the helmet would be the problem and not actually them.
All right. All right. I will not take any more insight on the helmets because I think we have hit the nail on all of the heads. So all of your answers have really culminated. But this final answer, I particularly like it because we're focusing not on the actual helmets, but on the experiences of the soldiers. So the helmets might be considered clumsy, not because the helmets, they might be low quality helmets, they might be damaged, they might be too small, too big. But I think the main reason here, or at least one main idea, is that these soldiers are so panicky, they're shaking, they're so frustrated. We see fumbling, we see stumbling, we see floundering. So it's as if the helmets themselves are working against them. When you're late, you're rushing out, it feels as if you're trying to grab your phone to put in your pocket, the phone dropping, you probably curse the phone. What a stupid phone. So it's like they're now cursing their very tools of war because it seems as if everything is working against them. And no, of course, the helmet is to blame. Maybe the rifle is to blame. The grenade pin isn't working. So in this whole sea of chaos, nothing is going right. And even the very inanimate objects seem to be enemies at this time. The helmets that should be protecting them, these helmets are now getting some of the blame for what's happening. As we look at fitting the clumsy helmets, I see all of these ing verbs that I mentioned earlier. What are some words that we think are being connected in this stanza? I would say fumbling, stumbling. These words sound similarly. Fumbling, stumbling, floundering. I could pick out these three words as being very similar in the cadence: fumbling, stumbling, floundering. Same kind of sound we're getting. What could be the connection between these three verbs and perhaps even other verbs in this stanza? All right. I'm not sure if I got all of what you said. There was some connection issue maybe on my end, but I could hear enough. I heard something about how the soldiers are moving and panicking, and we see that sense of action and movement and chaos in these words: fumbling, stumbling, floundering. So as we look at these words, we see the ing, we know that action is happening. But of these three verbs here, floundering seems to be the strangest. It's not a word we see every day. Why would this word specifically be used? Floundering. What does it mean to flounder, if anyone knows? And why do we think the poet chose this particular verb, floundering? And we even see the apostrophe kind of forcing the word to sound like fumbling, stumbling. Instead of floundering, we have floundering. So we have fumbling, stumbling, floundering. So the word is even shortened to heighten that sense of compressed action. Why is the word floundering used?
See that they are struggling, and maybe because of the author, they put in floundering in order to like rhyme with the others.
Yeah, so we see that sense of struggle, and then floundering is very closely connected to clumsy. When you're floundering, you're very clumsily fluttering about, kind of like a fish out of water. And so we see that there's a connection between how the soldiers are acting and how they're perceiving the helmets to act. So it's because they're floundering. This is why they think the helmets are clumsy, really. And we see that these men are stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. A man in fire will not sit still. He will be screaming, jumping, running, and that's how these men are acting. That's how they're panicking. And the lime here, as some of you might know, some of you would have done some research on the poem. The lime here is referring to quicklime, which is like a chemical weapon. So we can imagine these men who are in fire or quicklime. This is how they're acting. But we know that these soldiers here are not in fire or quicklime. They're stumbling, fumbling, floundering to escape the gas attack. All right, so we see here an ecstasy of fumbling, yelling out. You see, interestingly, someone was still yelling out. So one of the soldiers perhaps didn't manage to get the gas mask on in time. And we see here that the speaker has gotten his gas mask on. So imagine you're in the midst of the battlefield. There's a gas attack. You managed to get your gas mask on. How do we know this? The speaker is seeing through the misty panes, through the glass, or through the the sockets of the of the gas mask. But imagine looking at your friend, your comrade, who is still struggling, still trying to get his mask on. Of course, the speaker can't do much to help because they themselves are desperate to save their own lives. And we see here, under a green sea. What is the green sea? Are we suddenly in water here? What is the green sea, and how is a person drowning?
Sir, I think it would be considered as the gas, sir.
The gas is the green sea. And how would the man be drowning?
Because it's all around the atmosphere, so you would have been inhaling all of that. It would be like a sea.
Sir, I was gonna say because of the thickness of the gas and how much of it there is, it would seem like it's a sea of green smoke.
All right. So so we see through metaphor and also through imagery that the gas is so thick, so pervasive, it's so everywhere that it feels like they're under a sea. And of course, only one person is actually drowning because they didn't get a chance to get the gas mask on in time. So looking at the imagery here, we see fire and we see water, which is interesting. We see two natural elements that are able to cause, create chaos and create natural disasters. We also see lime and green, which are kind of similar in that greenness, that green imagery, the green sea. I saw him drowning. And then we come to this stanza of only 2 lines, which is interesting. We have a long stanza here, and then we have just 2 lines. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. Interestingly, ing. We see more ing verbs clumped together. Guttering, choking, drowning. What could we say might be an important shift that we can notice as we move from stanza 2 to stanza 3? What's an important shift that we can recognize?
Sir, I mean, the ship, basically, sir, as they said, the fellow comrade was drowning, sir. So at the next part was 2 lines, sir. It kind of saying like the person was begging for help, sir, because since he's already intake the gas, so he's basically pleading to his comrade cannot help him at all. That's already trying to save his own life.
Mm. So we see it's every man for himself, all right?
So it's really hard for me to say because, like, in movies, when one of the characters are dying and they're helpless, they're trying to ask for help, but the person can't help because they are already like selfish because they want to help themselves and continue to stay alive. So it's kind of hard seeing this whole passage here because it's about to lose his life.
All right, that's a good point. I see 3 other hands. Nathan, where is speaking? Nathan?
I was saying that in the lines, in all my dream for my helpless side, like for me, it's like he's like escaping reality or something, seeing that his friend is in like immediate danger, sir, and he needs help, sir, and he can't do anything about it. So.
All right, pretty interesting. I'm seeing some ideas that we have been seeing from stanza 2. What I want to find out is where we can see a difference between this stanza here and this one here. So we've been getting some continuing ideas of, this person suffering, this person needing help, and the speaker just being unable to help because, well, I need to help myself. But what do we see? Look at the language, look at the words in a close sense, and how do we see an important change as we move into this short stanza? There are 3 more hands.
Sir, I think the tone for this stanza is quite sympathetic. You see, sir, despite this pit of despair and destruction that is around them, it still seems to shock the individual. That the person in front of them is begging and grasping for the strands of hope that he could possibly find in this person, even though there isn't any, sir.
And that's an interesting take on it. We see a tonal shift. So we're moving from chaos and from mayhem to sympathy and, oh my goodness, if only I could help this man. All right, that's a good shift. Any other shifts we see, Rashid?
Sir, basically, I see a shift in everything that is going on here because first they were fumbling for their helmets and so on. Now there is this man that is dying and begging for help, and no one can help him because it's practically like everybody is there trying to save themselves, and it's just like, it's like hard to process everything that is going on. And that person who is begging for help must be feeling a lot of pain right now because this shows that everything here is just like the real experience of war. And it is not nice to be there because there's no amount of training that can prepare you to see somebody die.
Whoa. Wow. Profound.
Sir, and agreeing
Yes.
to what Rashid and just said, sir, it truly isn't something that you can stomach and like grasp from, sir, because normally from an original person mindset, they will think that, oh, war is so honorable, you will come out alive easy, but in the battlefield now, sir, the image that you had before and looking onto reality, it's so hard to process it, and it's like you're in days. You can't think.
It's interesting. In search for one particular answer, I found many other interesting answers. I've still not heard the particular thing I was looking for, but all of these insights are important shifts. Very interesting. Kenya, your hand has been up. Don't think you've
Yes,
spoken.
sir. I was saying that in the first stanza, they were basically trying to fight for their life. Everybody was fighting and everybody has been saved, right? And everybody have on the helmet. And just standing there seeing that you are safe and you have on the helmet and seeing somebody else there dying and you could have been like, oh, that could have been me. You are shocked and in disbelief and you are kind of traumatized and frozen. You want help, but it's kind of hard to move towards something that can cost you your life as well.
Wow, that's interesting. And so we can see this interplay of guilt, of guilt and duty. The soldier might be saying, man, I want to help, I feel so bad for not having helped and so on. However, what could I have done? All right, I'll give maybe 2 more students a chance to tell me what shift you see. I'm still looking for a particular idea, but I'm hearing many interesting thoughts here. Garcia's hand is still up, and then we have yes.
Excuse me. I realized that he said in all my dreams before my helpless sight. So when you make up fake scenarios and not expecting them to turn out to be true or to actually happen, and then it actually happened, I think that he's very frightened and afraid, and he didn't know what to do, as my schoolmates have said, sir. Just froze, and yeah.
Yeah, we see that in the word helpless, right? He's helpless. He's just there standing, watching the tragedy unfold. But I don't think at this point he can help because dreams. Is this still reality? Okay, one more person. I see Nitoni.
Yes, sir. I think there was a little bit of a shift in perspective that he was seeing with his own eyes, and also thinking that it could be him, that his life could have been taken like the other person. He's seeing the eyes, he's seeing that other people are dying, and he thought that it could be him. So a shift in perspective. He's looking at, what if that was me? I, like, another person could be in my body, and I could have been the one that was dead. He's saying that he's looking that there's not much time left, that he's probably thinking in his last the last breath that he could have probably took, like life flashed before his eyes, that he's wondering what he could have done with his life, probably missing his family, his friends. It's like your life just flashed before your eyes because you're wondering if you're going to die. You're trying to recall everything important to you before you pass away.
Wow. And it reminds me of that idea that we have, like just before death, you see your life flash before your eyes. But this speaker is seeing another man's life flash before his eyes. Kadeli's hand was up.
Yes, sir. So I was just gonna say that I've also like observed, or like I have this thought now that in all my dreams would also give a sense of time and distance than what was being experienced in the previous stanzas, as if like everything just went on already and he's just talking about it now.
All right, Kadeli, I want you to unmute your mic and continue that idea. You mentioned time. You mentioned the passage of time and how we're seeing a shift. So just keep talking until you develop the idea. What else do we see in this shift of time? Comparing the first two stanzas to this one. Are you seeing something else, Kadeli?
Not really, sir. Other than like the word before is also like a adverb that states time also. So like
All right, so we have an interesting shift in time, but I want someone to really tell me directly what this shift is. I see Julius. Come on, Julius.
Sir, was the time like in the first stanza and the second stanza? It was like rushed, it was hurried. But like as the man dies and is like drowning, he's like the time is slowing down. He's thinking about it other than being rushed and being like everybody hurrying and trying to save themselves. It just slows down and you're just thinking, oh my God, that really happened.
All right, so we see a shift in pacing, which is getting very close to the real shift that is fundamentally changing the poem.
I think there's a shift, like we said, in time from fighting for your life to not really realizing that you're at death's door. So with the words as floundering, like you're uncoordinated, you're no realizing the dire situation that you're in. So you're really just starting to, like, reality is just chipping in per se. Like for all your life, you've just been thinking that life is like easy peasy, but no, staring death right in its eyes, you're like, gosh, it's not this. It's like a shift from fighting for your country because that's loyalty to not realizing that the only true loyalty that you need to have is loyalty for yourself. So I think that is kind of a shift that you see in here.
Okay, interesting. And I want us to keep in mind that this person isn't seeing his own death. He's seeing his comrade's death, right? Who didn't
Yes, sir.
manage to get the helmet on. So while we even talk about this shift, let's keep that in mind as well. I want to move from this line, but I still have hope that two more hands will make a difference. Daniel, you haven't spoken yet.
Sir, there's a change in the tone, sir. Like in the first and the second stanza. Sir, he'd be talking like kind of fast. As somebody else said, he's rushing everything, like he's talking. Like he's showing like he's frightened and he's expressing what they were feeling at the time. And then in the third stanza, he kind of takes it down So
All right. So the pace has slowed.
yes, sir.
All right.
So adding on to that, sir.
That's good. That's interesting. Okay. Very yes. Last hand, Rashid.
All right,
Mhm.
so there's a change in the energy that is going on now. So basically, it moves from a slopey energy to everybody moving to save themselves. The person seeing them live flash before their eyes, and he's like now energetic to try and save himself, but while he is so choking on his own blood, so it's particularly hard to do so.
All right. These are all some interesting shifts, but I think we have looked past the simple and we have gone to the advanced. I'm asking you for a grade one answer, and you're giving me university answers. So these answers are all good. Another shift I want you guys to look at here is a simple shift. It's a shift that's simple, but it's very important in tense. You see the shift in tense? The first two stanzas are in past tense, right? We cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, limped. Gas. Just in time, someone was yelling out and stumbling. Dim through the misty plains, I saw him drowning. What do we see in this stanza down here? In all my
Sir,
dreams. Yes, go ahead,
sir,
Kelly.
sir, so it would basically be that he's now remembering all those stuffs, and the shift would be, well, although we pass what the shift is, the shift would basically be that the first one was basically talking about what he was remembering, but no, he's saying his current thoughts about it. So
Thank you. All the answers have been right, but this is the answer that I want to really progress the analysis. Now we have moved from action to reflection. So the first two stanzas are really a memory. Remember, the entire aim of this whole poem, the aim of this poem is to convince us that war is not as fancy, it's not as beautiful, it's not as honorable as we think it is. The first two stanzas are a piece of evidence. They're an experience that the speaker is using to support his claim that war is not sweet and fitting. Dying for one's country is not sweet and fitting. And so after we have the experience, we have the battlefield experience in stanza one, stanza two, we're now no longer in the past. We're now in the present. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges, not plunged, he plunges at me. No. Today he's plunging at me. No. Guttering, choking, drowning. And so this shift from past to present, it really marks the end of one phase of the poem. So we're done with the battlefield, with that specific experience. And now we're dealing with the trauma that it has brought upon the speaker, the PTSD, with a post-traumatic stress disorder. It's that kind of lingering memory. We see the speaker has nightmares about his battlefield experience. In the poem here, remember, the speaker is not necessarily Owen. So the speaker here in the poem could be 80 years old, remembering what happened 60 years ago. We don't know the speaker's age, but what we know is since this man went through this experience, he has not been able to sleep a night in his life, because in every single dream he has had, he's seeing that same man that he couldn't help reaching out to him. So of course he can't help him now, because this is just a dream. The man isn't alive anymore. He is dead. But whose sight is helpless in this line? And why is the sight helpless? That's what I want to know. Whose sight is helpless and why is it helpless? Rashid.
The man who is dreaming, the sight is helpless because it would have been a past event that would have happened a long time ago, sir. Or it could be a short period of time, but it would still be too late because that would have been in the past and now it's too late to save him. Now, the
Simple.
best thing for him to do is just to make peace with himself and try his best to not forget about it, but to just accept that he is gone.
Yeah, and not just accept that he's gone, but he needs to know, teach us what war really is, teach us his experience so that this doesn't happen again, so that this doesn't become a norm. Because the people who are talking about how great war is and how we should go and fight, they did not have this experience. They're not suffering in nightmares night after night after night. He's the one who has the real experience. And so, yeah, the site is helpless because it's too late. This man who is calling out at him, it's just a figment of this man's trauma. He can't actually be helped. And so the site is helpless. He's seeing the man calling, but the site is helpless because he's unable to help his dead comrade. All right, very interesting. Let's jump down to the final stanza as we wrap up. Who is you here? Who is the you in the last stanza?
What's that is reading, sir?
All right, we were reading. That's a nice answer, but that answer is too easy. Who specifically is he talking to? Who is his audience?
The person who is reading the poem, us.
The reader.
Yeah, the reader, but who is the reader?
So I think the persons who are dreaming to become like a soldier and want to go on to the battlefield as well.
Okay, that's a good. So when we're thinking about audience, when we're thinking about who the poem is written for, put yourself in the position of the writer and think, who am I writing this poem for? Who is my target audience? So we see here, one person could be, I'm coming, Daniel, don't unmute. One person could be whoever is dreaming of becoming a soldier. He's saying, look, get rid of that dream out of your head because this is what it's really like. Who else could he be speaking to? Daniel, come in. Daniel, you are speaking. No? Okay, I see some other hands. Kenya.
So you could also be talking to the persons who are saying that go to the battlefield and fight because it's a good thing, and you're saying that this is what can actually happen to persons who go, and you should like stop doing that and tell the truth to what can happen on the battlefield.
Good. All right, let's pause the hands for now. So, in one sense, he's speaking to those, young minds who might have a misconception of what war is. But the second audience here, I think, is more direct. The people in power who are advocating for battle, the people who are sending soldiers to war, the people who are recruiting the soldiers, the people who are spreading this military propaganda saying, yes, come and fight. How do we know this is the primary audience? You see here, my friend. This is the same you. My friend, you would not tell with such high zest, with such enthusiasm, the old to children, ardent for some desperate glory. So in a sense, if you knew what I know, if you saw what I saw, if you suffered what I suffered, you would stop telling people go and fight. You would stop telling people, you would stop telling these children, maybe not literal kids, but young minds, impressionable minds who have no experience. You would stop telling these young maybe high schoolers who want to prove themselves to go and fight. You would stop telling them the old lie. You would stop lying to them. Because when you are telling them Dulce et Decorum Est, it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. Dulce et Decorum Est pro patra mori. It's a lie. It's an old lie. And we're jumping all over the place because we're wrapping up in about 2 minutes. But why is lie capitalized? The old lie. Dulce et Decorum Est. Why do we have a capital L in the middle of a sentence? When we see these things, we have to wonder why. Janelle, I see a new hand. Janelle, come in. And then Anissa.
Is it to place emphasis onto the lie?
Okay, that's a good answer. Emphasis. So when you see capitalizations randomly, emphasis should be perhaps our first thought. Any other ideas? Anissa? Same answer, different answer?
Yes, sir. Basically showing like expression to the word.
All right, pretty good. Any other take on why lie is capitalized, Rashid?
So like she said, it's to place emphasis on the lie. So it's basically saying that this is really just a common thing.
So we see here that the speaker is showing us how deeply rooted in us this lie is. He has capitalized it because it's a capital lie, isn't it? It is, and it's capital in several senses when you think of it. It's a lie that is old, a lie that has been sold as truth. And so it's written with a capital L to emphasize just how important it is that we get rid of this lie, just how deep this lie is. And we see the poem starts with this lie, Dulce et Decorum Est, and ends with the lie, Dulce et Decorum Est pro patra more. This time he says the entire Latin phrase to bring even more emphasis and to kind of explain what the title meant. Because just reading Dulce et Decorum Est, it is sweet and fitting. We don't know what is sweet and fitting. At the end, we see the old lie. It is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. What else can we look at in this last stanza before we close off? If in some smothering dreams, you too smothering. What does smothering mean here? Any ideas?
So I think it means they're just maybe ruining the dreams of becoming a soldier for them, sir.
Ruining the dreams of becoming a soldier. That might be so, but let us remember the context in which the smothering is used. So remember, the speaker is having dreams. Here, the speaker is having nightmares, in fact. And he's saying, you're not having these nightmares because you were not in a battle. But if you had these same smothering dreams that I had, so why is he considering these dreams to be smothering? In what way are the dreams, to smother, to stifle, to cut off the oxygen? How are these dreams smothering? I see some new hands. Dulce, come in.
Sir, it seems to be smothering because it's clouding or overwhelming his mind with the bad memories of his days in war.
Nice. We see this is overwhelming
Me.
trauma. Yes, go ahead.
The reason why I think the author used smothering dreams is because it's very horrific for a person to dream about. It's very wild. It's very hard to see someone die on your own. It will give you like a very bad memory when you're in the present.
Yeah. So the smothering. Sorry, I can't take more hands for this point. The person being smothered here isn't the man who died from the gas attack. The person being smothered is the speaker. He's smothered. He's being suffocated by the memory, and so we're dealing with trauma here. So we see that war has effects in the moment, as we see here. The effects of war as you fight, but we also see the effects of war even long after the battle is over. Even after the war is done, the war still continues in the minds of the soldiers who survived. So there are no survivors. Some people might literally die because they got shot or they lost too much blood, but some people will mentally and psychologically die. So even when they survive the actual conflict, they are just the living, the walking dead, because they're just suffering. They cannot reassimilate into society. They cannot lead a normal life. We see here. So the speaker in this last stanza is pulling us into his experience, pulling us into his memory. If in some smothering dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in. So we see that the man is remembering they just flung this dying soul into the wagon like a piece of meat. No honor at all, no dignity. If you could see us flinging him into the wagon, if you too could pace, if you too could walk behind the wagon, if you could watch, if only you could see this man's eyes writhing. We can imagine someone who is possessed, their eyes going in all directions. If you could see that sight, you would stop talking about how nice war is. You have no idea how terrible war is. If you could only see. the eyes writhing in his face. If you could see his hanging face, what a terrible line. If you could see this, imagine a man's face hanging off of his skull. That is how deadly the gas attack is, that his face is hanging. That is such a grotesque picture. That's the image of nightmares. If you could see his face hanging. And then we have here an interesting simile that we can't even go into this simile right now. Like a devil's sick of sin. Imagine a sin so terrible that even Satan said, no, I can't deal with this sin. This is too much for me. Even the devil is sick of this, right? Imagine a face that is representative of something so terrible that even the devil can't stomach it. If you could hear, so first to see, if you could pace, if you could walk, and then we see if you could watch, and then we see if you could hear. At every jolt, the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs. Even in the sound of these words, we can hear the nastiness of what is happening. If you could only hear this man coughing up blood, not just blood, but froth and all kind of gross things coming up from this man as he's, exhaling and as he's coughing up blood and as the gas attack is taking effect. Obscene as cancer. Bitter as the cut of vile incurable sores on innocent tongues. This is some of the most grotesque imagery I've ever seen in a poem. If you could see and do and hear, if you could understand all of this, my friend, said maybe with some amount of sarcasm, my friend, you would never send people into battle. Anyway, students, thank you for having me. Thank you for for participating in breaking down this poem with me. You have some incredible ideas. I think you should all pursue literature because the ideas I've heard from you guys here, many of these ideas I've not considered before. I've never heard. I've never thought of myself, and I've looked into these poems many times. You can if you haven't, and especially if you are doing CSEC literature, I'd encourage you to watch my analysis of this poem on my YouTube channel and all the other poems. And other teachers have analysis videos as well. But this poem in particular is such an important poem, such a well-written poem. It's such a dense poem. In some sense, it's a difficult poem. And, poems like these really test us as students and even as teachers of literature. Sorry to end so abruptly, but I'm looking out and I'm seeing the sun. The sun is brighter than it should be right now, which means time is running out on my end. I've had so much fun with you guys, so I'll just hand over so abruptly. Sorry for the abruptness. I'll hand over to Ms. Williamson.
All right, what an interesting analysis and a wonderful time we've had here with Mr. Webb. All right, students, I am before I invite Doniel Anderson to do the vote of thanks, please look in the chat for the analysis of Mr. Webb's analysis of Dulce. So everybody send that link to your student WhatsApp groups. And I'm sure you're going to love this analysis. And there are other things there for you to see as well on the channel. Daniel Anderson, are you there?
Yes, miss, I'm here.
All right, please go ahead and do the vote of thanks for us.
Okay, miss. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Webb, on behalf of the Department of English and the students of grade 9, I thank you for conducting the analysis of Dulce et Decorum Est this evening. The discussion was rich and meaningful, and we have gained deeper insight into the interpretation of the poem. Continue to blaze the educational trail. We appreciate you and hope to have you share with us in the future. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.